All right, so today we are going to talk about sex-linked traits, and this just takes us back to the semi-beginning. Where do we find DNA? In the nucleus of a cell. What kind of cell? A eukaryote, okay? And then once we started talking about DNA, we got into how we make proteins, and now we get into DNA with genetics, okay? So what are chromosomes made up of? DNA, okay? Tightly coiled DNA in there. And where do we find them? In the nucleus, okay? So this is also going to come back tomorrow, and I've shown you these before, but this is a picture of a karyotype. We also talked about when we did meiosis that humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, a normal human. So how many chromosomes do we have in total? 46, okay, 46, 23 pair. And so now 1 through 22 are known as autosomes, and then the 23rd pair, XX or XY, is known as your sex chromosome. So that is what tells us whether we are male or female. Okay, so a karyotype can tell us that information. So 1 through 22, autosomes, and then 23 are the sex chromosomes. So if it's XX, it's a what? A female, and if it's XY, it's a male, okay? So we've seen this once, now we're seeing it twice, and then we are going to see this again tomorrow with actual karyotyping. So the biggest thing that we need to know about sex-linked traits is that they are linked to the X chromosome. So sex, X, linked, okay? They are linked to the X chromosome. So that's why us females are smarter than y'all males, because we have 2 X's and we carry all the traits, and y'all have a Y that doesn't carry those traits. It just makes you a male. All right, I'm only kidding. Right, Avery? All right. So, can y'all see these numbers up here? You can? All right. So what's this one? 12. Ooh, that one's tough. All right.
42.
Yeah.
74.
All right. So if you couldn't read those, there is a possibility that you can be red-green colorblind. Okay. So why is it that 1 in 100 women are colorblind, but 1 in 10 men are colorblind? Does anybody know? Say what? Women see color better. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Women have
Sample. Oh, all right. So the reason for this is because, and we're going to get into this, women, we can see 3 ways, and I'm going to break this all down, and males are only 2. So women can be normal, they can be a carrier, or they can have the trait, whereas males either are normal or they have the trait. There's no in between. So that's why men are more likely to have color blindness. So X chromosomes are much larger than the Y chromosomes, and they contain the important genes. That's why I was teasing y'all before. So Y chromosomes are very small, and they only contain what's known as the maleness determining factor, okay? So we don't need a Y chromosome to actually function. So we do have 2 copies of most of our genes. So since males only have one copy of each gene on the X chromosome, all the X-linked alleles that are expressed in males, even if they're recessive. Okay, so that's why this is true that 1 in 10 will have color blindness versus 1 in 100 in females. Okay, so when we're looking at a karyotype, which we'll touch on more tomorrow, and I know I've already touched on this, the X though, if you were to see a karyotype and it didn't say X or Y, if it had a bigger gene, bigger chromosome, and a smaller one, then we would know that that's a male. And if it had 2 bigger ones, then we would know that those are XX and would be a female. Okay. So traits determined by genes that are located on the X chromosome are said to be sex-linked traits. Okay. X-linked. So some common sex-linked traits are red-green color blindness, which I just mentioned. So this means that you cannot distinguish between shades of green and red. Hemophilia, okay? These are probably the 2 biggest ones you're gonna see if you were to do a sex-linked trait Punnett square. That is a blood clotting disorder. So your blood doesn't clot properly. And the last one, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, okay, DMD, this is a progressive weakness of the muscles, okay, like you see down here. And typically the life expectancy of somebody with this is 25 years. Does that mean that everybody? Okay, not always the case. So people can definitely outlive those years, but that is the typical life expectancy. So these specific diseases are caused by a recessive allele. So that means we have to have lowercase letters, right, to have that specific disease. So here comes the fun stuff. So females, this is how we write the genotype for one of the types of female, okay? And this is how we do it for the males, okay? So this is why I said it could be a little confusing because there's just a lot going on. So this kind of goes back to the IA or IA little I, okay? But there's no way around this one because we need to know if we're talking about a male or a female. So female genotypes always have 2 X chromosomes. So they are always XX. Males only have 1. And then they have a Y. So males are always XY. So because the X chromosome is what carries the allele, you will never see anything on this Y chromosome. Only on the X's. Okay? So this specific female that you know up here, and you are going to see this for sure, this is known as a carrier. And a carrier is still a normal female, but she carries the recessive allele, which can be passed on to offspring. So that's why she's known as a carrier. So she's still normal. She does not have color blindness or hemophilia, but she has the allele to pass on to offspring. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So if you are ever asked how you write a carrier female, that is how we do it. Everybody with me? Okay. So this is what I had already said, but the male will show whatever alleles on the X chromosome because the Y doesn't carry an allele. So if the male has a capital H, then they're normal. And if they have a lowercase h, then they have the trait because that is recessive. So if we have X big H, that is the normal phenotype. We're talking, well, in this case, this is the genotype, but they would have the normal phenotype. And X little h, their phenotype would be that they have hemophilia. Okay? So if we have X big H, that is the normal phenotype. We're talking, well, in this case, this is the genotype, but they would have the normal phenotype. And X little h, their phenotype would be that they have hemophilia. Okay? So if we have X little h, that is the normal phenotype. And X little h, their phenotype would be that they have hemophilia. Okay? X little h, what's the gender?
Woman.
A female, a woman, okay? And if she has two little h's, what do we know about her? She has the disease. So she has hemophilia in this case, okay? What about X big H, X little h? Female, and she's a carrier. So is she normal or does she have hemophilia? She's normal because why? Because she has that dominant allele. So this kind of works back to complete dominance a little bit, okay? X big H, female, and she's normal. X big HY. Yep, a male, and he's normal. X little HY. Okay, yep, he's a male and he has it, so he has hemophilia. All right, now we're gonna get to DMD, muscular dystrophy. So X big is normal, X little has the disease. Male or female? Male, and they have MD. Okay? That's a female, and she's a carrier, but she's still normal. Very good. That's a male, and he is normal. Female, and she's normal. Yep, female, and she has the disease. Okay? Everybody good so far? All right. So now we're going to work through a problem. Does it seem so bad? All right, good. So this is going to work just like we've been solving all the other problems. So we need to read the problem and underline the known alleles and identify that it is sex-linked. So the allele for color blindness is recessive and sex-linked, okay? If, now I'm just going to tell you this, more than likely you're not going to see it, but if it is a dominant disease, because that can happen, everything we just did is going to be reversed, right? Because if it's dominant, they would have the disease if it's pattern, right? And if it's lowercase, they would be what? Normal. There you go. Good job. Okay. So make sure that when you're reading a problem, you know whether it is telling you recessive or dominant. It will tell you that. But I'm also going to tell you that you're more than likely not going to have to do a problem like this. You're going to have to know about sex-linked traits, but you're going to have to know them linked to a pedigree, which we're going to talk about on Thursday. All right. So what do we know about the alleles? Okay, color blindness is recessive and sex-linked. Okay. Then we have to choose a letter to represent each allele in the problem. So what are we going to use? X what? X. What? Color blindness. And what was the first one you said though? I don't want to know the parents yet. I just want to know the alleles. With a what? With an X. So an X big H, you're on the right track. An X big H and an X lowercase h, because that's what we're going to be using, because that's what carries the trait. Okay. Now, you can use H. Up here, I'm going to have a C for color blindness, but what I say about using letters that look the same, don't do it. Okay. So X big C, but you can use your letters. Okay, is normal vision, and X little c would mean that they're colorblind. Everybody follow so far? All right. Now we have to choose and, or not choose, circle and or write down the genotypes of the parents. Okay. So we always have to have a male and a female. And what do we know about this problem? Okay. The female is a carrier and the male is normal. So how do we represent a carrier female? Very good. X capital, X lowercase. And then a normal man would be X what? X capital Y. Don't forget the letters. Okay. So he's normal. So X big C, X little c, and X big C, Y. Now we have to set up and solve the Punnett square. So it's gonna work just like we've been doing all along. So up top, and like I've told you from the beginning too, it doesn't matter who goes where, we're still gonna get the same answer. So we have the male up top, so X big C and Y. Just make sure that you separate these, okay? Sometimes students like to put everything above one box, but that's not gonna work. Then on the side, we're gonna have X big C and X little c. Everybody with me so far? So in the top box, what are we gonna put here? Very good. And here? Yep. Beautiful. And last? Perfect. Good job, y'all. Okay. Correct. The children, the offspring, yes. Because there's always a 50-50 chance, and the male determines that, because the female always gives an X chromosome, because that's all we have, and then the male either gives the X or the Y. So if they give an X chromosome, then it's a girl. If they give the Y chromosome, then it's a boy, okay? All right, so everybody with me so far? Now we're going to highlight and answer what the question is asking. So what does the question ask? Okay, what are the likely genotypes of their children? So you would tell me all of these that are in the boxes. So because we're talking genotype, we're talking letters, alleles. So it would be X big C, X big C, X big C, Y, X big C, X little c, and X little c, Y. So this is a what? Phenotype wise. Normal female, normal male, carrier female, but she is still normal, and a colorblind male. Perfect. That's it. That's what you have to be able to know. Now, if I were to ask you, what's the chance that they have a child that's colorblind, you would tell me 25%. And normal, 75. That's it. Okay? Not so bad? All right. So those are our percentages there that we just went over. All right, let's try one more, and then I will set y'all loose. So a woman is a carrier for color blindness, which is a sex-linked trait. If she marries a man who is not colorblind, what's the probability that one of their sons will inherit the trait? Okay, so we have a woman that is a carrier. So how do we do her? Since I'm drawing up here on the board, let's use B's. Does that work for color blindness? All right, so what am I going to put for her? Okay, and then she marries a man who's not colorblind. So he's going to be what? Cool. Everybody got it? What are you going to put here? Now, here's the tricky part. What's the question asked? Okay, what's the probability that one of their sons will inherit the trait? How many sons are there? 2. So guess what? You're only looking at those 2 because they're only asking for what? The sons. So it asks that the sons will inherit the trait. So what's the chance that their sons inherit it? 50%, because you are only looking at the sons. And if there's only two, it's either going to be 0, 50, or 100. Does everybody understand? And in this case, you told me it's what? 50, because we have one with the recessive allele.